It's been a minute since I've done a tag, and I was tagged back in August by my friend David Wiley to do the My Modern Literary Canon tag, and this was created by my friend Russell at the Ink and Paper blog. My name is Michael Evers, and this is Fit to be Read. There's only 3 prompts on this, and I'm going to read them off here from my phone. What 5 authors form your modern canon literary foundation? This is authors no longer with us, published in the last 100 years, whose work stood the test of time. So this is pretty easy. Well, I shouldn't say it's easy because there's about 100 people that I could put on this list, and I could rattle them off like that. So I'm just going to pick some real obvious ones. Isaac Asimov, who I think David Wiley also, David did choose. Isaac Asimov, obviously a very influential, foundational author in science fiction and many other genres as well, really. But, especially, you ask people their favorite time travel story of all time. A lot of people are going to say The End of Eternity by Isaac Asimov. And then you've got his, Behemoth series, the Foundation series, and the Behemoth series, the Robot series, I, Robot, Caves of Steel, Foundation, Second Foundation, Foundation and Empire, Foundations and Edge, and then some standalones, many standalones, The Gods Themselves. These are some of the greatest science fiction books ever written, so I got to go with Isaac Asimov. Ursula Le Guin, this is an author I was introduced to, luckily, when I was very young. The word for world is forest, The Lathe of Heaven, The Left Hand of Darkness, The Dispossessed, and many, many others. She also wrote in fantasy genre as well, but specifically I love her science fiction work. Octavia Butler was another author introduced to me really early. I shouldn't say too early. I think I met her a little bit before college, and then actually in an African-American literature class, we read Kindred. So there's Kindred, Parable of the Sower, Dawn, so many great works by her. Her short stories, Blood Child and Speech Sounds, 2 of the great short stories ever written in science fiction. Ray Bradbury, speaking of short fiction, I'm going to echo what David Wiley said in his tag. There's nobody who did it better than Ray Bradbury. And then you have his fix-up novels of some of these short stories like the Martian Chronicles and The Illustrated Man, 2 great books that I recommend to anybody who's kind of starting out science fiction. Those are a great place to start, and just amazing classic sci-fi. And then in the more fantastical, you have Something Wicked This Way Come, another one of my favorite books, not necessarily science fiction. Alfre Bester, The Demolished Man, and The Star's My Destination, 2 of the all-time great stories of science fiction. I'm going to say that a lot with these people. Ian M. Banks, one of the great series of all time, the Culture series. And then I want to mention Robert A. Heinlein, because he's somebody I've sort of poo-pooed a little bit because I did a reread of Stranger in a Strange Land, and I didn't like the reread as I had originally liked it because there were a lot of issues I had with author's voice coming through way too strong on that. And there's some, things in his writing that didn't age very well. But as far as this tag and the implications or the insinuation of this question, I mean, obviously a hugely influential author, Stranger in a Strange Land, Moon is a Harsh Mistress, Door into Summer, Starship Troopers. How much thinking of authors whose work has been copied or has influenced so many things that have come since. That's an obvious one. And I'm just thinking now, Arthur C. Clarke, Olaf Stapleton, Larry Niven. I could go on and on and on, but I'm going to stick with that group of Asimov, Le Guin, Butler, Bester, Banks, and Heinlein. I'm referring to my notes a lot here. Let's get to the second one. Number 2. What 5 still living authors do you believe have left a literary legacy that's already firmly established as modern classics? This was another prompt where, as I was watching David give his answers, I immediately thought of 20 people, and I did write down my list to just kind of highlight 7. I could pick any of these 20, but I'm supposed to say 5, but I never followed the rules completely, so I'm going to refer to the list. I wrote down Neal Stephenson. That's an obvious one. Snow Crash is absolutely a classic. I got to think Cryptonomicon, Diamond Age, they're going to be there as well if they're not already. Samuel R. Delany is super, super obvious. What an amazing author, what a unique author, a very influential author too, that I don't think he gets as much credit for being as influential as he is. Dahlgren, Babel 17, Empire, Star, Nova, some of the greatest things I've ever read, and that, of course, can be a matter of personal taste. I don't think he's for everybody. He has a very unique and varied style of writing. David Brin, I want to highlight him for, Startide Rising and the Uplift Saga, The Postman. Those are definitely classics already. Greg Bear, Blood Music, Eon, those are two mega works. And again, the work he did on the Extended Foundation trilogy. Ian McDonald is an obvious one. The Dervish House, River of Gods. And he has a new book, I think, coming out next year called Hopeland. So that's going to be one that I'm really excited to be picking up. And hopefully I'll have a review for that one next year. Nalo Hopkinson is one I wanted to throw out there. And I think that's the one that where, this is a much more current author, or recent, I should say, author than the ones I've mentioned already. But I do think Brown Girl in the Ring, Midnight Robber, those are two that are definitely like modern, are going to be, I don't know what you call a modern classic, but something that is now that you think will be a classic in the future when enough time has gone by to call it a classic and it stood the test of time. I think her work will do so. And I think there's probably a lot more to come from this author. And there's so many others I could mention. Robert Charles Wilson, wasn't going to mention him on the list, on the in shortened list, but you think about the body of work he's already put together with Spin, the Chronoliths. There's so many great things that he's done, and again, there's so many more that I could list right now. Number 3, what 5 authors who are currently writing, i.e., have released a book in the last 10 years, do you believe are building the literary future? So for this one, I'm going to go with Adrian Tchaikovsky. That was the easiest one to put on this list. Children of Time is definitely like 50 years from now when people are talking about their best of lists and you see Foundation and Dune and Stars My Destination and Ender's Game on there. Children of Time is going to be like that level. That's going to be included amongst those giants. And, he's got the Final Architect series, which, 50 years from now, that might be a Star Wars, Star Trek, something like maybe that might be pushing it a little bit, but it's really, really good. And there's another book to come on that one, for that one, and I'm looking forward to it. Elder Race, work he's done in fantasy, which I'm not as familiar with. There's probably people like Brandon Sanderson who I probably won't mention. Well, I've already mentioned him, but I think of classic fantasy. Of once I start reading fantasy, what should I read? I automatically think of the Mistborn series. And I don't even know what it is, but I know that it's super, super popular, so I would imagine he'd be on that list. And I do kind of like the idea of mentioning somebody who is not in science fiction, because everybody else I'm going to talk about is science fiction. And actually, I thought I wrote down on one of the other lists here, it should have been on the last list, but I guess I didn't write it down, but I'm going to put John Grisham on there, as well as a living author who already has written classics. The Pelican Brief, The Firm, obviously these things made it into movies. And you had your Michael Crichtons and people like, again, I could totally get lost in this, so I'm going to stick to just what I wrote on the notes. And let's see, I had Adrian Tchaikovsky, N.K. Jemisin, the 5th season, the Broken Earth series. Definitely that's going to be something, again, 50 years from now, that's going to be in those top 10, top 20, top 30, top 50 lists. Peter Watts, absolutely. Blind Sight, right up there again. Children of Time, Blind Sight, Foundation, Ender's Game. Those are the books that are always going to be in those top 10, top 15, top 20 lists. And he's got Starfish, the Freeze Frame Revolution, which I read this year, which is, I think, a really definitely an under the radar, unknown. No, I shouldn't say unknown, but a hidden gem. I don't know what I want to call it, but the Freeze Frame Revolution was really good, so I recommend that. It's a good introduction to Peter Watts because it's a really short one, so you don't have to invest a lot of time in it. But I would say go right to Blind Sight for him. Rounding out this list, I'm going to go with Cixin Liu and Peter F. Hamilton. Those are two living writing authors who I think still have a ton of new stuff that will eventually come out and probably turn into classics too. Cixin Liu, I'm especially putting in this even just for the series, the Remembrance of Earth Past trilogy. If you watch my 210 episode where I ranked 210 books, I had 2 of the books from that series, book 2, The Dark Forest, and book 3, Death's End, up in my top 20. I had Death's End in the top 10. So obviously I think really highly of that. I think that's going to be, go down as one of those great series of all time. And then Peter F. Hamilton, you've got so many things. The 2 I think I'll highlight for this video are The Reality Dysfunction and The Great North Road. but so many other, like just the Commonwealth Saga, giant, humongous stories that are filled from cover to cover with just world building, character development, huge action and adventure. The one thing I didn't think to do was to come up with who I was going to tag on this video, so I'm going to try to do it now. I'm going to tag my friend Delany, Sajid from Books Are My Social Life. I'm going to tag Russell again from Ink and Paper Blog, even though he did this original tag. But I feel like enough time has gone by, it might make, don't do it if you don't want to do it again because you already did it, but it might be fun to do it again to see if your answers have changed because you read so much. I'll tag my friend the BookTube Goddess, and I probably have like a backload of like 3 tags that she's tagged me in that I still haven't done yet. So I'm basically tagging people that I don't think should expect to be doing this tag, but those are the rules. And finally, I will tag my friend Jess because she was the first person to ever tag me in a tag video when I started YouTube. So that's Jess from The Bookish Mom. Thank you for watching. I'm Michael Everts, and this is Fit to be Read.